Hello everyone. So today I'm in the yard and I'm getting ready for the fall leaves to drop, and this is my composting bin. So I want to take a little time and show you how I compost, and hopefully you compost as well, but this is the system that I use. So this is what they call a 3-bin system. It's roughly 10 foot long and it's divided up into 3 bins. So each bin's a little over 3 foot. So how this works is the bin to the far right is filled with last year's leaves that came down, so it would have been the fall of 2017. The center bin are the leaves and grass from the fall of 2016, and the far left, which is basically finished compost, is from 2015. Now this here takes a couple years to get established, but I like it because it's really no work when you're trying to compost. I've heard from different people that try and compost, they've tried those plastic drums where they claim that you get compost within 2 or 3 weeks, and it takes them hours during those 2 or 3 weeks to try and turn it into compost, and then when it's all said and done, it's not really good compost from what I've heard. So like anything else, it takes time. I would think within 2 years, if you use this system, you could have an established composting system. So I'll show you. This far right one, like I said, is underneath all this grass that I've thrown in here a few times during the summer, are all the leaves from last year. And when the leaves fall, I have a system that I do where I actually chop the leaves up and get them as fine as I can get them. I have a little machine that does that. Later on in this video, you'll see what I'm talking about with mulching or grinding up the leaves. So the center one here is from 2 years ago. This is basically done. If I needed to use any compost, I could take it from here. And then this one on the far left is all rich soil compost, and it's ready to go in the garden. Now it's October going into November, so obviously I'm not going to be putting this in the garden, but I need to make room for this year's leaves. So I'm going to take this dirt or compost out of this far left bin here. It's a little wet right now because we had some rain this week. I'm going to shovel all this out, shovel it off to some concrete in the backyard here, let it dry out for a couple days. I'll sift it and I'll put it in a couple of cheap $10 Rubbermaid trash cans and store it for the springtime. Now, to build one of these, it's really simple. There's a ton of plans on the internet. It's basically 2x4s, and the front part is just some deck boards. And how I made them was, they're made to be pulled out so that you can get down and dig out the compost. And I'll usually just pull a couple of them out so I can get the shovel in there. So it makes it really easy to get in there with a shovel and move the compost from bin to bin, or move it out, get it ready to go in the garden. Just a couple channels built into the front of it, and then the slats just slide down. Everything else is just basically chicken wire. It's like 1/2 inch screening, and that's to let the air get through to it. You need air for composting. So let me get started here. I'm going to empty out this far left bin, and then I'll show you what this compost looks like. So I'm on my 4th wheelbarrow full, and you can see there's still plenty in here, maybe another 2 or 3 wheelbarrows. But if you look, how dark and rich this is. And all this is leaves, grass, any kind of garden scrap, plants, the flowers, the stems of flowers. I try not to put anything that has seeds in here, but you can see how nice it is. And I don't think you can buy soil like this. What I did is moving it over here to the concrete so it can dry out. Let it dry for a couple days, and then I'll sift it and get any kind of debris out of there. You'd be amazed how you find rocks and things like that in it. I don't know how it gets in there, but it does. So we finished doing this, and then we can start moving the other bins to the left. Alright, so here's the finished compost bin. It's empty, and it's all moved over here for it to dry out for a couple days. It won't get completely dry, but I need to get it dry enough so I can sift it. That's an awful lot of compost, but I'll use it. If you've been following my videos, you know how big my garden is. This will get used everywhere. So I'm going back over to the compost bin. Have to put these slats back in. Hopefully you can see how they just slide down into this built-in slat. Put these last two in. Alright, now from here, this middle bin is basically finished compost, but I have nowhere really to put it, which is why I have the third bin. So the center bin, everything in here, it'll get moved over to this left bin, and then come the springtime, when I run out of the compost that's over there on the concrete, I can come to this bin and take what I need for next year's garden. So we finish up here and move this middle bin to the left. So now I'm moving the compost from the middle bin over to the left bin, and this is basically finished compost. If I can grab a handful here. All this is leaves, grass, and any other kind of scrap material that comes from the garden, and it turns into this nice dark black compost. It's full of nutrients for all the plants. So come the springtime or any time during the summer, I'll empty this and just keep the process going from right to left. This looks really good. I'm really pleased with it. Once I run this through the sifter, which I'll show you a little later on in this video, this is really wet right now, but it'll be real fine. So, and again, the front, the panels, they come out, and as I dig down, I can keep removing panels, so it's easier for me to dig this out and move it over to the left bin. So let me finish this, and we'll clean out this right bin, move it to the center, and I'll be ready for the leaves for this fall. Alright, so there's the empty center bin, and it's all moved to the far left. That's a lot of compost, but I'll definitely use it around the garden. So now everything that's in this far right, I'm going to take it and move it into the center. Alright, so I got the far right bin about halfway empty, and you can see this is last October's or November's leaves, and then this springtime and summertime worth of grass. So this really isn't fully done, although you could use it in your garden. I don't. That's why with the 3 bins here, this really will have a whole another year and a half to continue to break down. And the nice thing about transferring is now I'm kind of oxygenating the compost, which will help it along. But it's not bad for a year. Like I said, you could use this, but I wouldn't. So you finish emptying this far right one, and come back and talk some more. Alright, so it's all emptied out, moved to the center bin, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a worm there, and as I was digging through it, there was a ton of worms all throughout this. So that's a good sign. This is good compost. If the worms are eating it, this is good compost, and they'll actually help break it down. So now that we have this far right bin emptied, get a shot of these trees here. Now we wait. Yeah, these things will be dropping probably in the next week and a half. And as they drop, I'll collect them and grind them up, and I'll put them in this right bin and start the composting process all over again. Now, there's a ton of trees kind of surrounding my property, and I don't know how they get over here, but they do, and I don't mind because I pick them up and put them in my compost bin, and most of my neighbors are bagging them and throwing them out. That's their loss, I guess. So the far right is for this year's leaves. The middle was last year's leaves. This will still have time to compost even further. And all the way to the left is from 2 years ago, which is basically finished compost at this point. But we'll let this go over the winter before we sift it. So here's the pile of finished compost that I laid out on the concrete a week ago, and it's still kind of wet, but around the edges was dry. I'm going to need to spread this out a little more to try and dry it out a little bit in order to sift it. But I probably have maybe 4 30-gallon Rubbermaid trash cans worth of compost here. And how I do it is I have my makeshift sifter. It's made out of some pressure treated wood, some screening. I think the opening on the screening might be about 1/4 inch. And I just throw it in there, rub my hand across it, and it'll sift it, and then I'm able to get any kind of rocks or sticks, anything that hasn't been composted. And what I do with that is I'll just take it out of there as it starts to load up with junk, and I'll just put it in a 5-gallon bucket. When the bucket gets full, I just take it and I'll dump it in like an inconspicuous area in the garden, and it'll break down even further. But anyway, here's the sifted compost. It's nice and fine, and it'll be perfect for starting flowers, or just putting in the vegetable garden, or putting in the flower garden. So let me finish this. This will take a little while to do. I usually wear out 1 or 2 pair of gloves doing this, but it's well worth it. You can see how nice that is. So I did pretty good with the sifting. I ended up with 5 of these 30-gallon Rubbermaid trash cans full of sifted compost. And this is really nice. All 5 of the cans are just like this. So I'll use this around the garden next year. I'll use it to start seeds, mix it with sand and some peat moss for seed starting mix. But real happy with this. So I'm over here at the 3-bin composter, and this is what I use to grind up all the leaves. I've had it for probably 10 years. It's a nice little machine. It was cheap. It's electric. It's almost like a weed eater on the inside. It has the string in there that you would use for an electric weed eater, or even a gas weed eater, and it grinds up the leaves into nice mulch. And I do this because it just makes the leaves quicker to break down. This is a Flotron leaf eater. You can see it's been patched up with metal. It's made of plastic, so if you bang it around, it does break. But I've been keeping it going by patching it with little pieces of metal here and there around the whole thing. But it works. So I'll show you real quick how this thing grinds up the leaves. And I filled the hopper up with some leaves, and it's pretty simple. You just turn it on. So as you can see, it works pretty good. I know you're probably wondering what all this is. This is just all leftover plants that were beginning to die from the frost we had, and I don't like to throw any of this out. It makes perfect compost. It's overflowing right now, but as it starts to decay, it'll drop down, and then I'll move it over to the right bin, because this center bin is partially finished compost, like I explained earlier. It'll get moved over to the far left. So I hope you enjoyed the video on composting. Don't throw any of your yard waste in the trash. Save it. You can make yourself some really nice compost for growing plants or growing your vegetables. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.